Welcome to Consortia Accounting Business Advisors, How to Build a High-Performance Accounting Business, Session 3, Highly Profitable Accounting Services. By way of introduction, this session presents how you increase your profit and demonstrates highly profitable accounting products and services. Now, as a reminder of primary accounting business processes, last session we talked about management, whereas today we're talking about the importance of research and development, and of course what it is and how you benefit. And of course, as I've mentioned before, it all begins with research and development. The question is, once we know our target market, what products and services are we going to offer? And of course, why it's so important is because good research and development, continuously improving our products and services, continuously developing new products and services, does increase our profit. And as I mentioned to you, when we see these accounting business problems, when somebody says, I'm just not as profitable as I used to be, then we need right off the bat, we need to focus on their research and development. And the reason for accounting business profitability is because most freelancers, sole proprietors, and local accounting companies, such as LLCs, don't perform research and development. They just don't understand the importance of it. So let's begin with the end in mind. We need to do 4 things to start. Number 1, we need to identify our target market. We need to be very specific. We only go after certain people. So in other words, it's a target. And so the important thing is identifying specifically. We use what's called the rifle approach and not the shotgun approach. Number 2, research your target market. Constantly talk to people, interview people, survey people, evaluate people in your target market of what they would expect, what they want, those kind of things. Number 3, improve and develop services and products for your target market. And number 4, provide services and products that differentiate you from your competition. So let's begin with identify your target market. A target market refers to a specific group of prospective clients or prospects. You direct your marketing and selling efforts to these prospective clients. However, you also direct your research and development efforts to these prospective clients. Research your target market. Research is the process of determining the demand and supply of your target market. The objective is to increase your profit by determining what services and products your target market needs or wants and how much they will pay for it. Improve and develop services and products. Development is the process of improving and developing services and products that supply the demand of your target market. The objective is to increase profit by improving and developing services and products with a higher demand and a lower supply. Differentiate from your competition. Differentiation is where you offer your target market something unique, different, and distinct from your competitors. The objective is to develop a competitive edge or an advantage over your competition. Now, let's talk about the product life cycle. Let's spend a minute here. And so what I want to point out to you is that when you look at your products and services, and when I say products and services, that would also include, for example, the tools that you use. For example, QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online. So the point being made is that you want to make sure that your products and services, as well as your tools, are either new, emerging, or mature, and of course stay away from those declining. Now very quickly, QuickBooks Desktop was one time new. It emerged, it matured, it declined, and now it's dead as of July 31st of last year. QuickBooks Online was new, and it continues to merge, and it just keeps going up at this point in time. Now here's the important point of what I want to stress to you is that when you think about your organization and you think about your products and your services and the tools you use, that is the processes, then you'll find that if you work with new products and services and processes, you'll be a new organization. If you're working with emerging products and services and processes, then you'll be an emerging organization. And you could say the same thing about a mature organization and a declining organization. So the important point is that it's not that we want to be new, but we certainly don't want to be declining, and we want to avoid being mature because that means you're horizontal, you're just leveled out. You always want to be going up is the point. And so I want to be stuck in the emerging phase at all times because that keeps going up. And I always want to stay ahead of being mature. So that's the most important thing I want to do is always focus on your products, focus on your services, focus on your processes. And in the accounting industry, bookkeeping, payroll, accounting, and tax have been around as far as tax, since 1917. But as far as everything else, bookkeeping, payroll, accounting, been around for centuries. And so it's not going anywhere. So it's not so much the product or the service. It's more of the process, the way it's done. Now, we talk about productivity. Specialization. In business, specialization refers to the practice of concentrating resources and expertise on a specific service, product, or process. So in other words, again, concentrating your resources. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you're by yourself, you are the resource, okay? If you have a few staff, that's your resource, that kind of thing. But the point is that you want to concentrate your resources and expertise on specific services. So don't try to be all things to all people, okay? Unless you're big, you've got an accounting department, you've got a tax department, and within your accounting department, you have a bookkeeping team, and you have a payroll team, an accounting team. As you grow, obviously, you can take on a lot more. If you're a sole proprietor, that's a whole different story, okay? And so the idea then is that to, again, concentrate your resources and expertise on specific services, specific products, or processes to enhance efficiency and create a competitive edge. So just in general, people love working with people who specialize. If I'm a construction business and I'm needing bookkeeping or accounting, I would prefer, and our studies show this, if I have an option of working with a generalist or working with a specialist who performs bookkeeping and accounting for construction companies, that's my preference. And oftentimes, our research shows they'll pay a premium for it, okay, as long as they feel they're getting more for when they're paying more. So instead of spreading resources across multiple areas, businesses focus on what they do best, and what you love, by the way, allowing them to refine their approach and stand out from their competition. Now, we'll touch upon this a little bit more a little bit later. So when you look at non-specialized versus specialized, so let's say, for example, I go out, I work for an accounting firm, I'm now going out and offering accounting services. When I worked for an accounting firm, I did a little construction, little professional services, little medical, little manufacturing, little retail, nonprofit. And so, yeah, I could probably handle that. But I'm not concentrating my resources in helping myself become much more efficient. You would be better off, instead of offering and taking on accounting services of potential clients in all these industries, you'd be better off choosing one, maybe two. And for example, I've had people ask me, gosh, I like your idea behind specialization. What should I specialize in? And of course, as we talked about before, you want a larger audience and you want a larger demand, a lower supply. And so construction, for example, the reason why I use that as an example is because there's so many people in construction. The general contractors and all the subcontractors, electricians, framers, it just goes on and on. It's a great industry to be in and specialize in, okay? And so again, people prefer specialists. Make your life easier, focus on one service, one product, one process, basically, or as few as you can. Specialized target market example. So obviously, when you're establishing your target market, you need to say, okay, I understand the idea behind specialization. I understand the idea of not spreading myself too thin. And so when people come to me and I specialize in construction and they're a retailer, I'll say, sorry, but I can refer you to somebody else, kind of a thing. You just don't take that work on. You'll regret it, okay? But anyway, the point, in other words, just go after the people you specialize in, and that's easier too. And we'll talk about that again next week. But the point is here is that, let's give you an example. So I work with Utah, this is just an example, I work with Utah small construction businesses. Small construction businesses using QuickBooks Online ecosystem, small construction businesses with less than 50 employees, small construction businesses with between 250,000 to 5 million. Now remember, this is where you start, and you can always, in other words, these are variables. You know, you can change how many employees, you can change how many, you know, how much the revenue. So as you go on, but you want to start and you want to be as specific as you can. And these are the people that I work with. Anybody else comes to me that does not meet this specialization, I don't mess with, but I do refer them to others. Hopefully those others will refer work back to me is the idea. You develop a network you work with. Okay, so individual versus business clients, another point here. So again, if you're offering bookkeeping, you're offering payroll, you're offering accounting, you're offering tax services, then it would only make sense to avoid working with individuals and spend all your time with business clients. And, you know, I know that when you very first start, you're desperate to pick up clients, but don't be too desperate. You'll pay for it in the long run if you do, okay? Know your target market, know who you're looking for, and work with those people. But back to this, and so another thing is, I would avoid working with individuals. Now, why is that? Because an individual, from an accounting standpoint, with the services I mentioned, they only need an individual tax return done, okay? Whereas if it's a business, I'm not saying you're going to do it all, but they need their bookkeeping, they need their payroll, they need their accounting, they need their accounting analysis and business performance recommendations, they need business tax returns, they need individual tax returns. And so if you start with them doing their individual tax return, your business and individual tax return, then you're going to cross-sell your services through your marketing efforts and pick up all the rest of it. You don't pick it up now, that's fine. But in your mind, the day will come soon that you'll be doing all of this because they are so flippant impressed with you that they're like, wow, why would I have anybody else? You know, if he offers or she offers this work, wow, why would I go anywhere else? Okay, and so cross-selling makes life a lot easier. And again, we'll talk about that another time. Business owner options. So this is another thing that's important, that when you work in the small business world, in any world actually, but the point is that number one, when they need to have things done, they only have 3 options. And so we tell owners, you know, only do the things that you absolutely can do and you absolutely should do. In other words, it's only for the owner. You know, employees shouldn't be doing it. Independent contractors shouldn't be doing it. But you need to learn to delegate, delegate, delegate. That's one of the key things a small business owner has to learn. Yes, you can crank out that tax return better than somebody else, but you've got better things to do, okay? You got to learn how to delegate it. Let it go. So the question is, okay, then that means I'm either going to give it to an employee or I'm going to give it to an independent contractor. I only have 2 options. So when it comes to bookkeeping, payroll, accounting analysis, business tax returns, individual tax returns, who should you have do that? Okay. Now, we're going to talk about QuickBooks here in a second. When you work in what we call the QuickBooks world, the small businesses, things are a little different than if you're working with larger businesses, so on and so forth. Okay. And so then the question is, again, who's going to do your bookkeeping? Who's going to do your payroll? So on and so forth. Okay. Well, this is what I want to introduce you and help you make a little sense before I answer that question. So in the small business world, a vast majority of small businesses use QuickBooks, and they use QuickBooks Online, okay? And not only that, but let me explain something to you. So when I first started working for a large 50 professional local office, back then in those days, all the small businesses brought all of their work to us, their bookkeeping, their payroll. Now, if they were large enough to do their own bookkeeping, which meant they would have had like a controller and some bookkeepers, clerks, whatever the case may be, fine. But a vast majority of our clients had us do, and again, we were a 50-plus professional organization, had us do their bookkeeping. And so the point is that they relied heavily on the accountant, okay? Then what happened is QuickBooks comes on board and they start promoting, you don't need an accountant, just buy our product and you can do your bookkeeping by yourself, okay? And okay, fine. We won't even argue that. But when I was speaking I was at a QuickBooks conference, Intuit conference, and I actually had the privilege of speaking to Scott Cook, the founder of Intuit. And I said to him, in part of our conversation, I said, did you really mean to take all the accounting work from the accountants? And he said, no, not at all. He said, the way we look at it is that when it comes to day-to-day books, receipts, payments, invoicing, payables, when it comes to those things, why shouldn't, if they have the product and the tool, why shouldn't they do it on their own? And it's kind of hard to argue with, okay? So what he envisioned was the employee did the day-to-day books, but they relied on the accountant for support, for training, for questions, that kind of thing. In other words, they were a team is the idea. The accountant kind of faded away from the actual bookkeeping, was focused more on the accounting, okay, and helping as a support tool for the bookkeeping. And of course, the employee did the bookkeeping is the idea. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go through this now. So there's a lot of organizations, again, I always like to use the word accounting, which would include bookkeeping, payroll, and accounting. But the point is that there's a lot of those organizations that have the mindset that, we provide bookkeeping services, which means you outsource it to us. We provide payroll services, which means you outsource this to us. We provide accounting services, which means you outsource it to us. But we learned in the QuickBooks world that you're kind of you're walking on your own, what's the word? You're stomping on your own foot if you do that. You're only hurting yourself. So what we learned is when you're working in a small business world, especially a QuickBooks world, that you give them options and you can help them either way. So we found when it came to bookkeeping and payroll that number one, we can train your employee. That is, if you want your employee to do it, if that's who you want to outsource your bookkeeping and payroll to, we can train your employee and perform bookkeeping and payroll. Or option two, you can hire one of our knowledgeable, experienced, and ethical bookkeepers. So a lot of firms would be like, what are you, crazy? I just trained this person and they're great, they're expert, and you're just going to give them away, to a client? And so if you're familiar with the Big Four accounting firms, that happens all the time. In the audit department, for example, what will happen all the time is when you don't become a partner, then you either go start your own firm or you go to work for one of your clients as a controller, for example. So we find the same thing applies here. Now, by the way, why do they do that? The reason why the partners don't mind doing that in the Big Four firms is because now they have a mole or a plant in that company, and they're loyal to the Big Four firm they work for. So if there's services like audit, for example, that are needed, then they're of course going to and they're the controller, they're going to recommend the company they came from. Okay. Well, we find the same thing, that when they're looking for a bookkeeper, we'll say, hey, we can save you a lot of time and effort. Every one of our bookkeepers are really, really good and would do a good job for you. In fact, maybe even the one that's been doing your work, for example. But you're welcome, to interview them and hire them if you'd like. Okay. Now, they appreciate that. There's one of the things as a small business owner you really hate, and that is recruiting. And that is, getting new clients. You have to getting new employees. It's a headache. And if we can make it easy for them, especially knowing that, hey, this person's going to be good, why not? So they're happy. Now, if they're now doing the bookkeeping for them and they're so good they don't need our help and assistance, fine. But when they should be able to do payroll too, but when it comes to the accounting, we'll do their accounting. When it comes to taxes, we'll do their taxes. And when it comes to other things, which I'll show you, you'll see what I'm talking about. Number three, we can perform your bookkeeping and payroll. So if you want to outsource it to us, great. We can do that too. So we don't care. Just whatever's best for you. These are the three options. So number one, this is where our products come in. And so we can train your employee. Well, how can we do? In other words, if you're going to have them do the books, we're assuming that they probably aren't a QuickBooks expert, or more importantly, an accounting or bookkeeping expert. And 9.9 times out of 10, that's the case. And so we can help train your employee. Number one, we can offer higher education courses in bookkeeping, in accounting, in payroll, in QuickBooks. Number two, we can certify them if that's important to you. Okay, so in other words, you know that they know what they learned. Number three, we have guidebooks that we develop that go step by step of how you do bookkeeping, step by step of how you do payroll with QuickBooks Online. Okay, and then we provide training on the guidebook to help them. And then if you'd like, we can review, especially in the early months, we'd recommend it. We'd like to review their work, every month. In other words, to give you assurance that they know what the heck they're doing, And by the way, in an accounting firm, that's what accounting firms do all the time. They have managers that review the work of the staff. So anyway, we'll go through and review. We got a checklist, make sure they know what they're doing. Okay, we can do that for a few months. And then also we can be there to support them. They need help and assistance. Here we are. Okay, so these are all products that we offer. Now, by the way, let me say this. If you provide services, you don't earn money unless you're providing services. If you're not providing services, you're not earning anything. You have no income. On the other hand, with products, people go to your website, you've told them about it, you communicate it, you market it, they go to your website. Each day, you're selling your courses, you're selling your certifications, you're selling your guidebooks, you're selling your training, you're selling your review, you're selling, your support, okay? And so I love products. And you've heard the expression, making money in your sleep. All you do is you get prepaid, you fulfill, you send them the guidebook, wherever the case may be, and you're done. It's just wonderful. So hire one of our bookkeepers. So if you hire one of our bookkeepers, I would not recommend anybody to you unless they've gone through our courses, they've gone through our certifications, they've gone through our guidebooks, they've gone through our training, they've gone through our best practice systems, in other words. They obviously have experience, and they're a certified public bookkeeper or CPB. And so, in other words, this person is going to be good. What it really comes down to, if you're going to have them come to the office, is picking a personality you get along with. So let me finish this up by pointing out to you when it comes to services. So let's say they're interested in saying, no, I want to outsource. So if you were to go to our website and our bookkeeping website, this is what you would see. Now, I want you to notice what I'm communicating here. Consortia Bookkeeping Services provide you with timely, relevant, and reliable financial information. Number one, they don't quite understand, what do you mean timely, relevant, reliable? They just think of financial information. Well, we provide training all the time, recorded videos that train people on, that is owners, on what they should know as a business owner. So one of the things we teach them is your financial information should be timely, relevant, reliable, and here's why. And increase your operating cash flow. Now, that they do know. Whoa. So you're saying your bookkeeping just doesn't keep my books, but you can increase our cash flow. Absolutely. We identify, record, and classify your daily financial transactions. Now, by the way, we do offer daily, but we also do weekly, and we also do monthly financial transactions, and recommend and implement enhanced operating cash flow procedures. So by getting familiar with doing your books, we understand what you're not doing, which you could do to enhance your operating cash flow procedures. Bookkeeping is the daily identifying, recording, and classifying of financial transactions such as sales, receipts, purchases, and payments. It's the foundation of an accounting system and critical to operating cash flow because bookkeeping controls the timing of receipts and payments. It's absolutely true. In a normal AR, AP organization, it's your bookkeeper who determines when the money comes in and when you pay, okay? That is, they've been trained right. Okay, let's talk about payroll. What would you find on our payroll page? Consortia Payroll Services make your payroll convenient. That's a key word. Now, by the way, where do we get this information from? by researching the target market we serve. We do have them do surveys, we have them do evaluations, we have them do, just outright ask them questions. We're constantly communicating with them, getting feedback. How can we improve? Just everything, okay? And so that's why we know what to say to them. We know what pushes their buttons. But anyway, back to this. Your payroll is convenient and accessible for you, the owner, which they want to be, and your employees. Your employees will love it. You and your employees provide or access, so your employees can actually get on there and provide, their hourly, their hours, or access their payroll information at any time and from anywhere with any device. Employees love these things, okay? And of course, this is QuickBooks Online Payroll. Payroll is the process of gathering, recording, and processing employee, federal, and state payroll information, payments, and reports. Payroll should be convenient and accessible for employees and employers. So did we just think, hey, that sounds good, let's put that on there? No, it came from research. And so all of these are the same. That's why I'm sharing them with you. So accounting. Consortia accounting services, and by the way, the reason why we say we identify what accounting, payroll, because a lot of people think bookkeeping is accounting. A lot of people think accounting is bookkeeping. And you and I both know, no, they're not. They're entirely different. Bookkeeping is just the first three steps of the accounting cycle. Okay, and you and I hopefully know that. So again, Consortia accounting services increase your company's business performance. So in other words, we're not just doing your accounting, we're helping you increase your business performance. Well, how do you do that? We gather, analyze, and communicate business performance and recommend strategies to improve financial position, profit, cash flow, and equity. Hey, I want to improve that. Accounting communicates a company's financial position, profit, cash flow, and equity. I'm educating them. Business owners use this information to make informed business decisions. That's what accounting's all about, but they don't know that, okay? So you share that with them in as simple and quick as you can. So then, in addition to that, one of the things we do, and you may gasp when you see this, but when it comes to bookkeeping, payroll, and accounting, we perform your bookkeeping, payroll, and accounting for free for 3 months without business interruption. When I say without business interruption, what I'm saying is whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Keep doing it. And let us do your first 3 months and compare us to them. That's what I'm saying. This enables you to experience our services. So in other words, we are so flipping good at what we do, nobody compares. Nobody compares. And so we want you to compare us to others that you've used or are considering using. And us to recommend strategies to increase your financial condition, profit, cash flow, and equity. So what we're saying is, hey, we just don't do your accounting and say, here, good luck, have a good day. Okay, and of course, most of them just take that, financial information, put it in a drawer, and never look at it. But we have training that says, no, look at this. But anyway, the point is that, so we're saying the reason why we do this is to give you recommendations and strategies to increase your financial profit and cash flow. The biggest ones to them are profit and cash flow. They don't know a lot about equity, not so much about financial condition, but again, we educate them. We're always educating potential clients and clients for free. We do videos up the wazoo. So anyway, that's the offer. Now, think about this. From our standpoint, what do we get out of this? Number one, we have a school that we take students through. They're the ones doing the work under our strict supervision after they've gone through our training, they've gone through our education courses, our certifications, our training, etc. We allow them to work in this in a very, very managed, supervised environment. But that's one of the reasons why we're able to do that, okay? But the point is, they want experience. But the point is that, but this is good for us too, because what if it ends up where you take them on and they end up being a crappy client? Yes, there are crappy clients, okay? And so the idea is, like, for example, they don't get you the work. I need something. Oh, yeah, I'll get it to you. You never get it. So that's one of the biggest pet peeves we have, is that we try to assess, do these people, cooperate with us? We can't do their work without cooperation. So you may ask them, we just saw that they just got this new loan because we saw this loan payment. So we ask them for the loan documentation. Never get it, never get it. So after 3 months, we're going to fire them. We're not going to work with them. Okay? So it goes both ways. But we find this to be one of the best ways to generate clients by allowing them to do your books for 3 months. And after 3 months, even if you did a mediocre job, if you're doing the job, you're still going to keep them. Anyway, I can't tell you how effective this is. Okay, now we'll finish off here with tax planning and preparation services. And again, we're educating them, but at the same time explaining to them why we're different, how we have a competitive edge. Consortia tax planning and preparation services reduce your federal and state taxes and prepare you for retirement. So we don't say, hey, we do tax preparation. We say we reduce your federal and state taxes and we help you prepare for retirement. That's in our research. That's what they want, okay? We gather tax and retirement information, develop a plan, implement the plan, analyze and communicate results, and recommend improvements. No kidding? Are you serious? You don't just do my return? Tax planning is a plan to reduce your federal and state taxes and prepare you for retirement. Tax preparation is preparing your tax return after the end of the year when most opportunities to reduce your taxes are gone. So we're outright educating them. That's what so if you're talking to somebody else about doing your taxes and all they do is talk about tax preparation, you know to move on and come back here. Business owners use tax planning to reduce their taxes and prepare for retirement. Okay, now, very quickly, here's other business services you should consider. Number one, providing business incorporation. You can actually charge a fee for that. When people know they should be an LLC, when they go to an attorney and they have to pay $500 or more, they're like, and we can do it for a lot less than that and still make money on it, okay? But, and here's what I'm trying to tell you. When you offer these other services, and again, we'll talk about this in our marketing stuff, but when you offer these other services, what happens is they come to you just for that service. But then what we do is do such a good job, develop a relationship, and then we cross-sell our other services. Now, by the way, what else can we help you with? Well, gee, I really like you guys. Can you think about, my bookkeeping or whatever? Business planning. It's just one of those things that everybody who has a small business should be, and they know they should have a business plan. It doesn't have to be a 50-page report. It can be, the very beginning, 3 pages. That's how we get them started. But we help them with business planning because we know it'll help them become more successful. And then, of course, we talk about research and development, like I'm doing with you. We give them advice, or maybe even perform the service for them. As far as production, as far as performing certain things, we can give them advice or perform the service for them. As far as finance, this is where we can really help them. And as you know, operations, investing in finance, cash flow activities, we can give them advice or even service. In other words, when it comes to operations, we can say, we can increase your cash flow. When it comes to investing, we're saying, hey, we notice you have some excess money here you're not using. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Here's some things we would suggest to you, okay? When it comes to obtaining financing for that new car, truck, equipment, whatever the case may be, we can help you. In fact, we can package a loan for you for your bank, or even for the SBA, for example. And so, again, additional services. And finally, customer service, again, advice or service. We have a system here that we use, that we perfected, that would apply to almost every organization, okay, with a few differences, that is comparing it to an accounting organization. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's the presentation today. I hope I've spent a little time here because I want people, they don't typically think that, I really need to be doing financial or research and development. Yeah, you do. Okay. And that is if you want to be a high performance accounting business. So anyway, we're done with R&D. Our next video will be on marketing and sales, and we're going to talk about how you increase prospective clients and clients. Marketing increases prospective clients, sales increases clients. Okay, sorry for being so detailed on this, but it really, really is important. So I spent a little more time here. Have yourselves a wonderful day.